Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Now we can all agree that terrain level of detail is the most important setting in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, both in terms of the visual quality that it can provide and also the performance hit that you will experience if this value is set incorrectly. So in today's video, we will first look at the visual quality differences between different levels of terrain level of detail, and I think you are going to see some things in those comparisons which you may not have seen before. And the next, I am going to show you how to set up your terrain level of detail with a nice little free tool called AutoFPS to not only get the smoothest performance out of your sim, but also have the best looking scenery that your system can handle. Now just a quick one, these videos do take a lot of time and effort to record and edit, and this channel being non-monetized and unsponsored, your likes and subscriptions really mean a lot to me. So I will appreciate if you can please leave a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel to support my effort of getting you the most optimized flight sim experience. And you can always join my Discord linked in the description if you have any specific questions. So let's move on to the visual quality differences. Okay, so to compare visual quality differences, I'm going to bring up this same image taken at different TLOD levels with clear weather so that you can clearly see what kind of sacrifice you're making when you lower your TLOD levels. And this is LAX, by the way, so you'll see a lot of photogrammetry here, which is great for this kind of comparison. So this is TLOD of 400. 400, you can see that the buildings and photogrammetry extend up to this hill, which is quite a bit actually. In real world, you will not be able to see that far. There'll be a haze layer, which will basically hide everything beyond this line right here. I'm going to switch to 300 and I'll flip back and forth just so that you can see the difference between the two. Now you'll see that usually what people think is that TLOD of 300 versus 400, you'll basically lose detail further out, right? You would expect that you would see less detail further out. That's not the case. If you look at, just focus on this ground or maybe focus on this building, you will see that between 400 and 300, you not only lose detail further out, but you also start to lose detail closer to you. So if I flip back and forth between the two, you will see that these buildings closer to you are also losing a little bit of detail. But then overall, I would say that 400, 300 do not look that different. Like if someone were to show me this photo and then after 5 minutes they were to show me this photo, I would not be able to tell the difference. We are able to tell the difference here only because we are flipping between the two back and forth. Then going from 300 to, so let's settle on 300 for a bit. And then switching to 200 from here, again, flipping back and forth, 300 and 200, 300 and 200, 300 and 200. So this is where you start to see a lot of sacrifice being made further out in this zone here. So for 200, you start to make a lot of sacrifice in this zone further out. You're not making a lot of sacrifice close because you will see that between 300 and 200, these buildings do not lose any detail at all. But you will see some photogrammetric density get lost here, but these close-up buildings are not changing much. So that's 300, 200, 300, 200. Going from 200 to 100, you will see that there's a heavy loss in photogrammetry somewhere down here. It becomes completely flat. Doesn't look bad at all. You can still see these buildings further out. So they have progressively reduced the detail going from 400 down to 50. It's not like if you can see, let's say 100 kilometers with 400, you'll only see 80 kilometers with 300. You'll only see 70 or 60 kilometers with, that's not how it works. TLOD is basically a very progressive thing. So smaller details are being removed from regions closer to you, while bigger details like this city are still kept. You can still see some kind of geometry around this downtown area. The only detail that you're losing is the smaller geometries that are present between you and between that city where there are big buildings present. And then going from 100 to 50 is the biggest change that you will see out of all the changes that we've just talked about, even though it's only a difference of 50 in values, but in terms of visual quality, it's just night and day difference. So that's the visual quality difference between 50 and then you have 100 where things get populated way more, 200 which is amazing, it looks pretty good, 300 which looks extremely detailed, really good, and 400 where all the detail gets added at different distance levels and also you have more detailed photogrammetry closer to you. So higher TLOD does not just mean that you are increasing detail further out, it also means that you will get more detail closer to you. So now that we know what we are sacrificing when we reduce the terrain level of detail. Let's get into the performance side of things, and let me show you how to actually tune your terrain level of detail to get not only the best performance out of your system, but also make sure that you are at that Pareto front of the curve where you're also getting the best visual quality from your system. Okay, so now that we have talked about visual quality, let's go ahead and talk about performance. And I'll say that I've seen a lot of people lock TLOD values to one fixed value, either 100 or 200, 300. If you're doing that, you're either leaving performance on the table that your system can handle, or you're leaving the visual quality on the table. And that is where AutoFPS comes in, which is a really nice little tool which can help you modulate your TLOD based on the altitude. This is not a copy my settings guide. What I'm going to do is show you guys how to actually set it up correctly for your system and for your sim. So on the general settings, what I have done is I have set the target FPS to no frame gen because I do use frame gen, but I want AutoFPS to only look at my base FPS. I'm using the NFR option, which by the way, if you hover over it, you'll see that it's called native frame gen, and I'm locking that target to 39 FPS. Why is this? Because my in-game FPS is locked to 40 FPS. So what I'm telling AutoFPS is that you do not need to change anything until I'm at least getting 39 FPS out of the sim. If I'm getting more than 39, then you can go ahead and increase my TLOD. Anywhere below 39, I don't want you to touch the TLOD value. Apart from that, I do not use auto target FPS. I do not recommend that because it will change around your target, which you don't want. You want a fixed target. Now in expert options, I have set this to FPS sensitivity, which means that whenever there is a difference between the frame rate that your sim is doing versus what your target is, it will detect that difference and accordingly modulate the TLOD by a sensitivity value of 5. Now I've seen that sensitivity value of 5 works just fine for me, but if you guys are seeing a lot of stutters as you take off, I would say that you can try to reduce this value. Reducing this value means that the amount of change that happens in TLOD when you take off will be lower. Increasing the value means that the step change in TLOD will be higher, and when the step change in TLOD is higher, that would cause more stutters. You would need a stronger system to deal with that kind of changes. For me, 5 works fine, but you can see if you get stutters, you can lower this value. This setting is a really neat setting. So along with having the sensitivity value set to 5, I also turn on line of sight correction. So I'll leave a little diagram on the side here to explain what this means. But in simple terms, when your line of sight correction is on, the TLOD is going to increase slower at lower altitudes, but then as you climb, it will start to increase more and more. What this helps with is it gives you a more stutter-free experience during those initial climb phases around 1500 2000 feet, and then when the sim is already performing really well, that is when it will start upping the change that it is making to the TLOD to get you a higher visual quality. So that's what this is, and I always keep this on. Now TLOD base min. These two values are very important, so listen up on this one, okay? TLOD base min, you set this value, just spawn at the worst case scenario airport with all the traffic that you can spawn with, and set this value to the highest possible value that your sim can handle without getting any stutters or frame drops. I'll say that again. Set this value to the highest possible value that your sim can handle without getting stutters or FPS drops in the worst case scenario condition. This value, set this to the highest possible value that your sim can handle once your airplane has crossed 1500 to 2000 feet mark. Okay, so just go through one takeoff, set a fixed TLOD value, and see at what point do you stop seeing frame drops and stutter. Again, I'll repeat this again. The TLOD top max value needs to be the highest value that your sim can handle when the airplane is above 1000 to 2000 feet. These are honestly your personal preference. I usually like to at least fly smoothly manual until at least 1500 feet, so I have left this at 1500 feet. You do not need to use this extra if you actually listen to how I told you to set it up. You do not need this. Extra is needed only if you set up your TLOD base minimum too low and you want to add some more TLOD on the ground if your system can handle it. It's not required if you set it up the way I told you to set it up. And I'm sure most people leave this off. Most people only use it for modulating the TLOD. But yeah, hopefully that helps out, and hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so here's a quick demo of this whole process. AutoFPS is running in the background. I already showed you the values we are taking off from LAX here, which is a pretty damn heavy scenery. So I'm running 200 here. For lower end systems, I guess you can run maybe 100 and then put the high to like 200 or 300, because I'm sure once you're in the air, even medium end systems would probably be able to handle 200, 300. But again, you should do your own testing on this. It's not a copy my settings guide, as I said. Now if I look on the right, or sorry, on the left, you will see that I am still at 200. Looks pretty good, doesn't look bad at all. But as soon as we cross the altitude of 1500 feet, which now I think we did, it will start increasing my TLOD, which I think I shortly bring up the, yep, there you go, AutoFPS thing as well. It's slowly increasing my TLOD to 400. If my line of sight correction was off, it would increase the TLOD very quickly, which is something that I don't want, because I still want it to have like a nice smooth transition going from 200 to 400. That's another thing. If you have a huge gap between that minimum and maximum value, it's not good, because the step change in TLOD will be higher, and then you'll get stutters. So it's actually an engineering problem. But anyway, yeah, hopefully that helps you guys out, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, by the way.